This week I watched Ratchet and Clank, a statement I wish I could have made 2 years ago when this movie came out, because sadly it needed all the help it could get to get butts into seats. To anyone not in the know, Ratchet and Clank is based off a 16-year-old video game franchise of the same name. So while most probably haven't seen this movie, or perhaps even knew it existed, you've probably seen or even played one or more of the games, as they've been a PlayStation staple since the early years of the PS2. Having stuck around so long as a game, we know they must be pretty good games, but how does Ratchet and Clank fare when it travels into the movie dimension? Well, that's what I'm here to tell you. As far as being an adaptation of an existing property goes, Ratchet and Clank is right up there with the best of them. And as far as being a video game adaptation, it probably is the best of them. Not that the bar was set all too high to begin with. They made a lot of excellent choices with this adaptation, such as involving the team behind the games, but more importantly, and honestly I think more impressively, they decided to not recast the primary characters. Those are the voices we've come to know and love, and when it comes to a big Hollywood movie, they usually cast aside the lesser-known voice actors and opt for a big Hollywood name to give the movie a little more pull. While that might have helped get more people to see the movie, personally, I'm happy they stuck with their guns and didn't recast the characters. The first thing you're going to notice with this movie is it might not be quite up to the same level as other heavy-hitting 3D animated movies of that year, such as Moana or Zootopia, but I would say it's on par with the quote-unquote smaller studios like Illumination or Blue Sky. With all the robots and alien planets, this could almost pass as an animated Star Wars movie, if you ignore everything that makes this Ratchet and Clank and change it to Star Wars. This felt like one of those old school adventure movies that I grew up with and I really loved as a kid, and you don't really see them that much anymore. My only criticism with the movie in this regard is that because I'm familiar with the games, I know what kind of planets this IP has up its sleeve, and I would have liked to seen a few more of them. But I can't exactly fault a movie for deciding to be a little more focused. Another thing I want to talk about is the story. And sure, it's nothing really new. Small fry rises to the occasion to save the day. We've seen it countless times. But without revealing certain twists and turns within the plot, I think it really puts some refreshing spins on what many people could see as a pretty tired scenario. Something I find curious with the story, though, is poking around online and looking at reviews for both this movie and its companion game. Because of the fact they share the same story, I had noticed that while some praised the game for its story, the movie, on the other hand, was bashed for its story. Which brings me to my final point, which I apologize for sort of leaving this show's normal format to address this, but it's kind of important. If you've looked at the reviews for Ratchet and Clank, you'll see it has a Metacritic of 29, and even lower on Rotten Tomatoes with a score of 18. Sure, this movie isn't a godsend, but it certainly isn't close to either of those numbers. Call me a crazy old man, but I think there's a weird hate towards any animated movie that isn't from Disney. And even more hate to any movie based off of a video game, because that's entertainment for a lesser folk. And this movie has both of those elements fighting against it. Ratchet and Clank is a fun comedy romp through space. While sure it might be targeting a slightly younger audience than some movies, it's really no different than any other animated movie from what I can tell. If you liked the games, you certainly will appreciate this movie, and several of its fun Easter eggs scattered throughout the film. But I think even if you're not a fan of the games, don't let that hinder your experience with this. There's still plenty of movie here to enjoy, and it more than stands on its own without the games to hold it up.